Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Nina Ha, and I want to welcome you to the Asian Cultural Engagement Center, or ACE Center. And this is the InspirASIAN series featuring graduate students. Before I begin, I'd like to start with the Virginia Tech Land and Labor Acknowledgement. Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that legislation and practices like the Morrill Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia, see where my mind is, to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands, both locally and in Western territories. We understand that honoring Native peoples without explicit material commitments falls short of our institutional responsibilities. Through sustained, transparent, and meaningful engagement with the Tutelo and Monacan peoples and other Native nations, we commit to changing the trajectory of Virginia Tech's history by increasing Indigenous student, staff, and faculty recruitment and retention, diversifying course offerings, and meeting the growing needs of all Virginia tribes and supporting their sovereignty. We must also recognize the enslaved Black people, generated revenue, and resources used to establish Virginia Tech and were prohibited from attending until 1953. Through inclusive VT, the institutional and individual commitment to UPROSM that I may serve, in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence, we commit to advancing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you for accepting the invitation to be here. My first question to you will be, please introduce yourselves. Please introduce like who you are, what your major is, what year you are, and all that good stuff. And then secondly, in sharing your biography a little bit, could you share with us why you wanted to pursue graduate studies and how did you decide on your field of study? So I will begin with Min.
Hello, this is Min. I'm a first-year PhD student studying computer science at Virginia Tech. And before that, I did my undergrad at George Mason University. And why I choose to come to grad school? So like, by the time I finished my undergrad, I was debating what should I do after undergrad, but like, I didn't want to like work for like a big corporate company for the rest of my life, and like do some work for the company, not for me. And I wanted to make a real impact that what I want to do. So that's why I came to graduate school.
What do you study?
Oh, like I do research in software engineering and human computer interaction. So primarily I study how developers interact with like code when they write their code.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
So I'm Hassam, and I'm a fourth year now, last semester PhD student in, thank you, Management Systems Engineering, the ISE department, Industrial Systems Engineering department. I have a bachelor's and a master's in electrical engineering and a master's in management science, and a few years of gap in there. So I'm an older graduate student. And grad school was sort of a family business to me. My father is a university professor. My only sibling is a university professor. And I tried to get out of it a couple of times, changing subjects and stuff. Yeah, I nearly escaped, but I'm very, very happy that I'm back. I feel at home.
Hi, I'm InspirASIAN. I'm first year industrial and systems engineering student, currently in my second semester. So the reason to do master's is, honestly, I never had idea of doing graduate studies. So I worked in industry for 9 years in India. So in my last one-on-one discussion with my boss, he popped a question that where you want to be in next 5 years. I told him, I just want to replace you. I just want to be a general manager of operations. Then he said, then you should not be here. You should go and study. So that is the point I decided to do grad school, and I applied for it, and I just came here.
Oh, wow. What did you say you were working on at ISE?
Right now I'm doing ISE.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sydney. You can refer to me by she or they pronouns, that's fine. I am, well, it's weird. This is my first full year as a master's student, but it's also my final semester because I was both a grad and an undergrad last year. I'm part of Virginia Tech's music education program, which is 5 years and you graduate with a bachelor's and a master's. And that was why I came here, because I am a first generation immigrant kid, and that was what I could afford. I have my bachelor's in music education and professional flute performance, and I'm also a national competition winner in classical flute performance. And I'm getting my master's in curriculum and educational design. I am currently student teaching over at a high school nearby, and that's where I spend all my time. And I'm hoping to eventually become a university professor of flute, but I gotta pay off debt first. So yeah.
Hi, I am Farouk Zahid. I'm currently a master's student in aerospace engineering. I did a similar program with the undergraduate, except I'm not going to finish within 2 semesters. We'll see how long it takes. So I did my undergrad here at Virginia Tech as well, also in aerospace engineering with a minor in astronomy. And I'm now doing, I've ended up falling into like the machine learning hole. So that's where I'm going for with my master's. And as far as like why graduate school, honestly, like I'm a huge nerd, as many people here are, you know, and everyone is in their own way, right? And I just love to get like I wanted to have that experience of getting really deep into a topic in a structured environment, right? And then learning about doing a master's is, you know, applying say something new to something that's already been done, right? Like that's something that's interesting to me. So that's part of it. The other parts of it, I mean, like, you know, we had COVID, so I figured I could hang out and party a little longer. But you didn't hear that from me. All right. So it's being recorded, right? Oh, well.
Hi, my name is Diksha Pilania. I'm currently pursuing my second master's in architecture as an interior design, and I should be graduating soon in September. Before this, I finished my first master's in theater as a set designer from Virginia Tech itself. And before that, I did my bachelor's in accessory design. As per grad school, it was never in the plan. After I finished my bachelor's, I wanted to gain some industry experience, but my siblings were behind me to at least explore what it's like to apply for grad school. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I only applied to Virginia Tech. So when I got to know that it's a fully funded program for theater and I'll be paid to study, I just came thinking that it's going to be a free vacation in the United States. And I was supposed to get out of here after a year, but here I am 5 years down the line, still studying.
Thank you. Thank you for sort of sharing your reasons for going to graduate school. Next question, I'm sort of gonna jump around a little bit, but can you please speak to the importance of representation and diversity in the academy, and how do you hope to promote those values in your future career? Because some of you are graduating soonish, and I just wanted to sort of hear sort of why you think representation, especially within the APITA community, is so important, considering that Everything Everywhere All at Once just, you know, had many Oscars, right? And then same with the what is it, the song? Yeah. So why do you think that's important, especially in your fields too? Who wants to take this up?
I can.
Okay.
I guess it's particularly relevant to me because I'm a classical musician, and my particular specialty is German Baroque music, which exists within a very specific time period. Classical musicians are, it's kind of seen as like a very white field to get into because all of the composers were white, and some of them weren't Beethoven, but nobody knows that, and they should. And a lot of elements of some of like the most famous classical pieces, such as Dvorak's New World Symphony, were taken from musical styles from people of color, but it was all attributed to being like white innovation. Like the entire Romantic movement came out of the Middle East. And it's specifically important just because like going into that field, you can already kind of feel excluded. Because people are expecting you to have grown up with this, but you might have grown up with your own musical traditions, and now you have to re-hardwire your brain into this thing. And you just don't see a lot of it. There's not a lot of precedence of seeing a lot of really, really great musicians of color in the classical music world as much as there should be.
Thank you. Anyone want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think pulling off from that about feeling excluded and like not being in there. When I joined my program in the theater department, I was the first Indian in like 15 years to join a set design program in theater because nobody does that. And I got a lot of eyes and stares and gogs being like, you're a South Asian and you're doing theater and that too set design. Does that even exist? Like, is there a degree for that? So knowing that, and I did not grow up with theater. I had not seen any theater till the point I applied for my master's, which was like surprising for people, but still there was a way for me to get into that. And once I started doing that, I realized the importance of including and spreading the education that how arts is also important. And there are ways that you can reach abroad studies, not just doing engineering or biology or mathematics. Outside STEM, you can be in the States. And that is why the way I started incorporating it in my like professionalism was I started teaching set design to aspiring students in India. And then a lot of them started applying, and 3 of them are already like have been accepted now in 5 or other universities. So I feel that this is super important to be talked about, to be accepted. Like it shouldn't be a norm where we should have a discussion about whether it should be included, because it just should be. That's how I feel about it.
Anyone else want to share?
I can talk to the fact that not as someone that other people will look up to, but as someone that I've looked up to other people who've led this path, in the sense that I think we just talked about the fact that in STEM, you can see a lot of people, looking like us, especially coming from Iran. A lot of engineers come abroad, but making that jump, at least in my field, from engineering to social sciences and management and public health is not very common. And I think I've had that courage to do that because I've seen more senior students in that field do that eventually, start from an engineering career and then eventually move towards social sciences and business, for example. So definitely an important aspect of imagining that career path, imagining that path that we're looking forward to.
I think that is huge. Just like having someone that you can see who is doing something that you want to do. Because like growing up, I didn't have a lot of that. I didn't have much exposure to that. My parents didn't work in tech or in STEM, right? But there was all, growing up Asian, like because they were immigrants, there's always like that push saying, hey, go do this, go do this, go do this.
Or do something that'll make you money.
Exactly. No, exactly. Well, I mean, and now I'm here, right? And I have a job. I work for DoD, and my office is just like, it's a sea of white. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing because they make efforts. They're not all white, but it's pretty predominant, right? I mean, forgetting the fact that when I'm working there, there's my own thoughts of identity just in how I interact with people. Their diversity of thought is very restricted by that. And then like for myself, right, if I want to learn from other experienced professionals on how do I balance my race in the workplace, right? The number of people I can bounce those kinds of things off of is limited compared to what some other people might have. And I mean, shoot, like white people don't even need to think about that because they're the default, right? Which, not trying to bash on anyone about, right? It is what it is. But just like, I think part of it is that if I can't be that person, I'd at least like to let that door be open for someone else. At least like start the ball rolling on things like that, because while a lot of organizations have this idea of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion nowadays, a lot of the times the tangible, like the tangible stuff at the ground level for people like myself who are entering the workforce seems to be a little lacking. So that's what I'd like to think of, going forward. For context, it is a government job, so they move super slowly, right? So that's part of it, but they are trying.
That's everything.
Good.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
Any thoughts? I think that for computer science, it's like already like Asian dominant field.
Yeah, I do feel the same. I mean, industrial engineering, that's what.
But like one thing I would like to add is like it's mostly like Asian people there from overseas international students, and we don't see that much Asian people there, like Asian Americans, second generation populations in the computer science field. And I'm in sort of mid between, because like I moved from Korea to United States when I was in high school, so I'm in the 1.5th generation. So like I don't know if I like necessarily fit into this or not.
I mean, at the same time, like I feel like a lot of us, when we come from other places or when we have family who come from other places, et cetera, right? We try to put ourselves into boxes and try to figure out where do we fit in American society. And one thing, like me and my brothers talk about this all the time, right? There is no stereotype for us that has been determined by media. Like, yeah, there's like that idea that, oh, you're brown, you're going to be an engineer. And yes, I am an engineer. Don't point that out. But the fact is that like, we felt like, at least the three of us, we felt like we could do whatever we wanted. Like there was no predetermined idea of what we needed to do other than what we wanted to do. I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. So jumping off of that, I guess my next question is, can you please share the importance of mentorship and support systems for graduate students and how they've influenced your own journey? The ACE is trying to put together a mentoring program, but it's hit or miss every so often. So it's, what have you learned about mentoring as well as mentorship? What would you like to see in it? And why do you think it's also, or maybe not important, but what are some sort of helpful tips too about either being a mentor or a mentee?
I can talk about that. Because a part of the thing that I've been doing with my brother is we have a social enterprise where we have collaborated with NGOs in India, and we are providing mentorship to students, underprivileged kids in India. So we kind of studied and developed the whole mentor-mentee process and how to go about that and pairing up. But in terms of my personal experience with being the mentee for 2 of the master's program, I had to switch different advisors because people like decided to resign after taking me in, and then somebody else came in. And what I figured was, and it pulls off a lot from our previous question about how we feel a need to fit in. So in order to do that, a lot of South Asians especially pull off, and they don't put forward their needs in front of the mentors. If the mentor is saying something, they just accept it. And even if it's like wrong, they don't speak up about it because they have this fear that, oh my God, I have been accepted into this program, so I need to like just abide by the rules and do whatever is said, no matter if it comes at my sake of mental health or whatever. And I have not been that person. So I've always put forward my needs, and all of my mentorship experiences have been molded as per my specific needs. Because when you step into a department which is quite dominant and they have done theater for like 10-15 years and you have never done it, your needs for mentorship are so much different than those other experiences that people get in. So I think one most important thing that we need to keep in mind is, as a mentor or a mentee, you get as much as you put in. So you cannot expect it from one end. Same with the interior design department, where the advisor right now, he has never taken up a grad student to guide them for a final project. So it's me putting all the research in, telling him what I want to do, how it works, where it needs to go. And that's fine till the time he's receptive of it. At times I do feel like I need that guidance, which I should, because I'm paying for it. I'm here for it. But if you're not getting it, then put that effort to bring that out of it. So put as much as you can.
I think on a different side of that, like that's very much like a focus on your faculty mentorship, right? Like my faculty mentors are okay. They're not great, but they're not terrible. Like it's like you said, what you put into it is what you get out of it. But part of it is that like one of them, like my committee lead, doesn't work in my field. He's just happens to be in my department. So one thing that I found really helpful, I guess what I want to emphasize is the importance of mentors who aren't necessarily like mentors can take different forms, right? I'm sure you guys are aware of this, right? Like one mentor who's been very helpful to me is another grad student in my department. He's a PhD near graduation. And just like being able to bounce, like I'm at the early stages of like getting my thesis work done, right? Just being able to bounce things off of him, right? Like being like, hey, what does this idea sound like? Does it sound in sync? Does my schedule look okay? Because it's casual, it's not structured, you know, it's just bouncing things off of him and seeing what he thinks. And he wants to do it. He's interested in mentoring. So like he will give me unsolicited advice when he hears something that I said. He's like, hey, have you thought about this? And I'm like, absolutely not. Thank you. Because like, it's stuff that I never would have thought of had he not brought it up. And in a similar way, I think fellow grad students also serve as mentors in their own way, right? Like this kind of thing. I'm learning from you guys, you know, right now, you know, I'm hearing stuff about departments that I'm not familiar with and things that I'm not familiar with, thinking about different ways of life. And, you know, of course, like in the future, I think part of your question was like the importance of being a mentor, right? I don't know that I'm in a place to do that right now, but like, I think being a mentor is just something that people, if they can, should do just in general, because like, you know, it's, not necessarily because, you know, you'll get anything out of it other than the satisfaction. But like, you know, building someone else up, I think that's a good thing. You build networks that way, and who knows what you could inspire.
If I can continue on that. First, I'd like to say that the relationship I've had with my own supervisor, and he is an immigrant too. It's been unique, and he's been an amazing mentor. So I'd like to appreciate the fact that he, not only for me, but for all of his students, he communicates and designs a path after the graduate school period that is really good. And I feel, you know, the fact that I contributed to the design of that path, as well as, you know, got a lot of information and network and everything from. Apart from that, I have been, for the past 2 years, I've been mentoring the incoming management system engineering students, all PhD students in our program. So I'm talking about somewhere around 7, 8 to 10 students every year. And it's been an amazing experience. It's actually been the convincing element of grad school for me to go into academia. That's been, I find that the most rewarding aspect of this trade. And what I want to pick out of that experience and explain here is, I am planning on going into academia, and I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy supervising and mentoring. But I have this feeling that there's a need for a diverse set of mentors. Like we have students coming into our program who sort of are interested in following the path that I've gone and I'd like to go, and they benefit more from my mentorship than those who, for example, are aiming at going into industry that I don't want to go. You know, I don't have enough resources. So what I'm trying to talk about is there's a need for availability of a diverse set of mentors for a graduate student, you know, through their community, through their graduate student community, in their department, faculty mentors, and, you know, mentors from, you know, for example, the Iranian community, to let others know how to live here when they come from for example.
Are you part of ISBT?
I've been, you know,
I'm their primary dancer, so you've probably seen me if you've been to any of their.
a number of that's why you
Yeah, if you were in the rooms, you just saw me last week. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I can speak on the mentoring part in the sense that, like, I am a teacher and I am a mentor figure. I've never mentored grad students, but I eventually will. You know, when you are a music professor, you essentially give private lessons to people. You develop this very like intellectually intimate relationship with people and watch them grow as musicians and performers. And so by kind of informing myself and finding out, okay, what didn't I have as a student? What do I want to make sure other people have as a student so that they can have it a little easier than me?
Yeah, in my opinion, I have seen my mentors in the industrial setup. So basically, I can share in that perspective. So basically, in industries, it is not necessary that our boss is our mentor. We can find other mentors. So no one knows who is our mentor. Only we knows. So it's typically that kind of scenario. Basically, in industry, the mentorship is really important to navigate the corporate politics. So the corporate politics is it's really hard as when I joined as a GEP after completing my undergrad. It's really hard to navigate things. So we will have so many new ideas, but there will be so much resistance to implement it. So to navigate those kind of situations, so we need a good mentor. So, and it is our choice to choose the mentor. And most importantly, I have seen that mentors will choose us if we do perform well. So if we do perform well, they will come to us, they will tell the things what we should do, we should know. So in my first career, one of my mentor came to me and told me to do the next steps to go out of the company to grow professionally. So so the growth comes whenever there is a space. Even though we do better, we do well. If there is no space, we cannot grow further. So we need to find that space. If there is no space in that particular role, then we need to find some other area where the space is there for growth. So I'm here because of my mentors. So that's how my mentors guided me. So still they are guiding me.
This is small. I really agree with you on like the office stuff. Because like navigating the office is not something anyone ever teaches you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something you kind of figure out, and hopefully you have mentors to guide you through, you know, what you should and shouldn't say in different situations, what's the right way to handle XYZ. Because it's a complex environment, right? And it's also part of your future, right? Like you said, making sure that you have that space as part of that. So I just wanted to agree with you on that. Like that is
even particularly in manufacturing industries, we have to deal with thousands of workforce, and there will be so many politics within our team and between the teams and with the workforce. So so we need to borrow some experience from others.
I had several mentors throughout my undergrad. The first mentor I had was I was in a first generation mentorship program for freshmen, and she was very helpful. And the funny thing is, she was a sophomore, but I had a bunch of AP credits, so I skipped most of the freshman classes. So I took classes with my mentor. So like it felt more like a friend more like than a mentor.
Did that help?
It did. I mean, she was in the university 1 year earlier than me, so like she knew how to like navigate to the college resources. She knew how to like how should I start she knew that I start the program assignment early to get it on time. She knew how to like how should I ask for office hours for help. And another funny thing is like we graduated together.
that's awesome. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point to like remember that age should not bound the mentor-mentee hierarchy, because right now in my department, I'm the only grad student and the other people are undergrads, but they're fourth year undergrads. So they've been doing interior design for 4 years versus me who's doing it for the second year. And I don't feel any shame in going to the undergrads and showing my projects and like, can you sit with me? Can you help me? And like, I was literally able to complete my projects because 2 or 3 of them were really helpful and sat with me and made me walk through the process that they do and how to do about it. So I think age should never like bound. If you respect someone, you respect them no matter what age they are.
I mean, when you're in higher academia, you're also kind of forced to humble yourself really, really fast because there will always be someone better than you and younger than you, like simultaneously. Like musicians, we have like prodigies who are like 10 that are better than us. Okay, it's always gonna happen. But yeah, like I also teach dance like professionally, and my oldest student I think was in her 50s. So like she was old enough. I've danced alongside people old enough to be my grandmother, and they're still my friends. And like I get invites to like their kids' weddings and stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. I think like part of that, you know, is that like what you guys are saying is that I guess both the mentor and the mentee, and like, you know, say if it's under an organization like a department, it needs to be provided for that you have an environment where you feel comfortable doing so, right? A lot of like, I don't know how common this is in other fields, right? But in the engineering companies I'm familiar with so far and in my office, right? They're like, we know you don't know anything. Please ask questions because otherwise you will suck at your job at 9 months. You know, it's like, right. Like and they're okay with that. It makes sense in context, right? But it's a matter of providing that space where both people feel comfortable approaching each other when you need to have that discussion. Say if it's with your faculty or if it's with a friend, right? Like who might be an undergrad or et cetera, et cetera.
And sometimes just having the resources that knowing that you can ask will actually promote that dream safe space for inclusivity that everybody touts, but it's only like in actual practice that can be hard to come by because I've had like, you know, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm like talking about my accessibility mentors, but just realizing that there were a whole bunch of like things that I didn't know how to do with accessible softwares, and that now I'm learning very slowly how to use them. Like, I can finish my PhD.
Right.
Yeah. And then also finding your allies was also, I think, a critical tool in whatever you're doing here. Like, I don't know if all of you are doing PhD, masters, just masters for some, yeah. But just finding your allies to get that damn thing done, whatever it is, it's critical. And what I'm finding is that you can find them in the most unlikely of places. That's one. But I also, this morning, I had a recommendation I was following up on, and everyone's saying that guy that they're thinking that should be your chair if you got to go out of house, because I'm in a weird change of major thing now. Yeah, they keep everyone from in-house who actually helped you and then get everybody else on board. And you might actually find it's a very weird combination, but it actually makes total sense when you explain the idea. So be open to that too.
Thank you. Wanna say who you are and your major?
I am Sonal Sate. I'm a PhD student. I am building my own major now because HNFE was human nutrition was my original major. I got interested in, those like tracking tools that people use to like track their health status. I wanted to do something on that, and then everybody like in the main department freaked out. And so the individualized program said, yeah, we had one exactly like you, and she got done in record time.
Wow.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my next question sort of relates in some ways. So thank you for that. Is what have been the challenges, if you've had any, being in a graduate of PETA descent, and how has your identity as an PETA sort of influenced your perspective on your research in your work and as a graduate student? So it's a two-parter, but sort of similar.
Oh man,
in that way.
I got stuff to say about this one. Well, firstly, like School of Music Ed, very small. My cohort consists of like 10 people and one advisor, and I am the only person of color in that entire room, like at all whatsoever. All of my field placements, I have been under like white cooperating teachers with classrooms that were also like majority white. And while that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does mean that when I run into issues relating to my race, they are not always the most understanding. And it's been a very isolating experience these past couple of years, because I will bring something to, and I'm trying to be as vague as possible. I'll like bring something to somebody's attention. Like I was shown a video mocking my Middle Eastern descent. Someone found out I was Middle Eastern and showed me a video specifically mocking Middle Eastern people. And I said, so this happened. And everyone's response is, oh, sucks, ignore it though. As if, it was just like schoolyard roughhousing. And I'm just, you don't get it, do you? No, you don't. And it also, like overhearing the things my students say, because I've student taught elementary, middle, and high. And it's learning when the students start to parrot that kind of rhetoric, which can be really frightening because some of them have no idea what they're saying. And then some of them really truly do believe it. And, it's at that point where you start to think, they start forming their own sense of autonomy. Like I'm in my like early mid 20s. I'm not that far away from where they were. And it's kind of like, kind of people are we raising? How should we alter / adjust / stay the same according to this? This is important. We're making people. So.
I mean, I think it comes down to education, right?
Yeah, well, ultimately, yeah. I've seen people come in with like Confederate flags slapped on like the thing, and they just have no clue what it means because it was at home. So
I'm just so mad for you and embarrassed for someone else right now hearing your story.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, the funny thing is with race, like unless you've like, what I'm finding is that the people who, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's a good time. I just want to make sure that people we've invited are able to talk. Sorry. Thank you. No, you're fine. Thank you. Yeah, I understand. I will never understand.
So, sorry, once again, I just wanted to make sure that you all sort of are able to share your experiences and sort of explain just the, the challenges, right? As you pointed out, Sydney, but also just what are some ways that your identities have also influenced sort of how you conduct
man.
research.
So my research is mostly just field work, and I guess it's influenced that because I'm constantly pressured to like, you're an educator, it's your job to educate them. And I'm like, it's my job to educate them on music and how to be a good person via practice. It is not my job to hold somebody's hand who is perfectly capable of rational thought and to explain to them why Middle Eastern people are not all terrorists. That is not my job. And so kind of just separating that, because if you are constantly thrust into the position of perpetual educator, you will also be expected to educate adults and people your age who should already know better and that are being like kind of babied and handheld along the way while your own humanity is being questioned. And that's so it's kind of shaped me. I've learned to draw back a little bit and just like, I'm paid to teach music. And when I'm teaching a class, you don't insult people in front of me. That's it. So
I'm still pretty early career, right? And like, with at least my research, a lot of it's very solo work. I don't have a research group, it's just me and my professor, right? And we have a decent working relationship. But like what really stats me, what you said, at least from my perspective, is like the isolating part.
yeah.
Because like, just like my graduating class, right? I look around at my group of friends in my major, and it's like I'd like for there to be people in this group that I could talk to about these issues.
Yeah.
At times there's not. Now I can talk to them about it. They can't relate. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily an issue. They're sympathetic, but they can't be empathetic. Because they haven't dealt with the same struggles that we might have had to deal with, or the things that we've had to hear.
Not like that internalized prejudice is going to exist no matter what. I mean, it exists
Right.
in everybody, no matter what. We all have different degrees of privilege. So
Well, honestly, I'd love to hear from like you guys as like, having been in industry and coming back, right?
yeah.
Like how has this affected your interactions? Because you guys both worked overseas first? If I
Yeah,
understood right?
wrote-
Yeah, okay, back. Okay, cool.
actually, I didn't feel much differences. So I don't know. So even here, after coming here in the class, I feel that I'm still being surrounded with many people in industrial engineering. I don't know about other departments. If I look around, I confused. Am I studying in America or I'm still studying in Delhi?
No, you got a point. Like like a lot of my friends, and at least like once I got to graduate school, a lot of my friends suddenly became like looked like me.
Honestly, I didn't expect that. I expected something else, but after coming here, it's totally different. So,
Engineering, yeah.
so particularly in my department, so I didn't have the opportunity to experience that.
I don't think that is an opportunity.
It's all right, you didn't miss out on it.
Yeah, I didn't miss
On
out.
anything, I promise.
I wanted to talk to something else about this question, if that's possible. So I'm trying not to generalize here, but I believe there's a cultural element to being from that part of the world. And that is the virtue of acting humble, humility. And that does not necessarily mean the same thing for a person from a different cultural background. And a lot of times in academia and in postgraduate studies, we're expected to be able to promote ourselves. It does not come as easily to us as it comes to other people. So I've found that as part of I wouldn't say it's an identity challenge, challenge with being identifying from that background, but it's part of a cultural challenge of going through this process.
So I mean, like the kinds of strategies. So I mean, I grew up here, right? But like, still, my parents had very much that mindset, right? So like, what kind of strategies have you taken on to make sure, like, of course, being conscious of it is the first step, right?
Yes.
What kind of steps have you found useful?
Don't think I have personally broken out of it. So my mindset, I have always this battle with myself in my mind. Should I do this? That's not acceptable. So my current strategy is, I'll do the best I can and it will show itself. And that's not the best strategy, I would say. But then I've managed to seek help from others who are in higher positions, like my supervisor or other influential people in the community.
Right.
Who have that understanding that, hey, I'm from Iran, so I won't be able to talk, for myself in this setting. And they tend to help you with that sometimes.
Okay. No, but I see your point. Thanks very much.
I mean, for me, I think it's kind of hard to answer this question because I'm like a Asian male in a computer science field, so it fits the stereotype very well. So like since when I was an undergrad, like I felt I belonged to this community. And when as I moved to graduate school, guess what? I feel more belonging to this community. I mean, that being said, but like I feel, I don't know, for Asian cultures, like we have to be more like submissive, like obey, respect the elderly people. But like in America, it's not like that. It's more like you have to like shout out your research ideas loudly, so we can reach out to more audience, and more people can hear your ideas, and then we can find more collaborators. And also like here in the United States, I feel the advisor-advisee relationship is more equal, whereas like Asian culture is more hierarchical. For example, like in Korea, you have to say, ha 교수님, like you have to like use like talk very formally. But like in America, I call my professor, hey Chris.
It depends on the professor.
Yes,
Some of them.
yes, some of them.
Yeah. So I haven't been able to call any of my supervisors by the first name.
Oh, I guess that's only me.
No,
No, I think it's only me.
No.
Yeah, I had a hard time too, where because we were grown up saying sir and ma'am, and then we were like,
Yes.
and he was like, my advisor was 80 years old, and he's like, call me Randy, and
It messes with
I tried to like not speak to him for a while, so I could adjust to it. But talking about the question, I think I forgot the name. Sydney, I and Sydney are on like the art sector of it, where we literally had to do too much. I think if I'm speaking for both of us, to feel belong in that community, because we were like, I was just not supposed to be the South Asian doing theater. That just doesn't fit any combination whatsoever. So it was difficult, wherein at times my lack of understanding theater, which I was very open about right from the first day, that I haven't done in theater. So if you're accepting me into this program, you should know that. And I'm ready to like take a year, learn more and come back. But if you're accepting me right now, you should know that I don't know theater. So where my lack of understanding theater was assumed to be the lack of understanding English, which was very hard. And I'm also trying to be very vague to not quote statements or say anything right here. But it just astonishes me at times how people around me are not aware that English is literally a second language in India. Like if you don't know Hindi, which is like in my house, we communicate in English with my roommates who are all from India, because I don't understand the language that they speak in their
So many languages you guys have.
Exactly. So we do. And it was just so astonishes me when I was posed that question of whether I like understand or interpret English. And I'm like, I think in English, I've grown up studying English. So there are these things, there are these biases, and people need to be aware. And I try to put my best foot forward by organizing like Bollywood movie nights, by organizing potlucks, which introduces.
So fun though.
It is so much fun, to the point that like my American friends, which I have a lot of, have like Indian food in their houses now. So I'm like making my way. I'm making them brown. I'm like,
enjoy like some seasoning.
Yeah.
In their food, maybe. I joke. I've met like Appalachian people who have taken spicier food than me any day of the week. But actually, it was funny that you guys were talking about like being kind of humble and stuff like that, because I also grew up here, but I can't say I was raised within any one cultural value. I won't go into like this whole gigantic trauma dump because nobody asked for that. But I basically, I raised myself and my sibling. And I'm a very, very assertive person I will be louder than everybody else in the room, and I have no qualms about it. However, I know that I'm good at what I do, but it doesn't make me a better person than anyone else. And when I interact with other people, like in everyday life, in like a professional setting, what I found is that a lot of people do think that because they're good at what they do, they are just better than you. And like, that's where the kind of the disconnect is. I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm still a person. I can still acknowledge that I forgot all of calculus. Like, I did forget all of calculus.
Me too.
Dude, I'm in engineering. I don't remember calculus.
Right.
That's what computers are. That's what computers are for, man.
Fair enough, fair enough.
But well, like, so honestly, you guys are on the art side, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, who you are I feel like has a huge play into what you do, right? I think like outside of that, right? Like one thing that I think can be a little harder for us to have is just like feeling we have someone in our corner. You know what I mean? Like there's someone there who's like willing to fight for you. And I feel like I'm lucky that I've had mentors who are not white, you know, like someone who helped me land a position, he was Hispanic. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? Like if he hadn't, you know, at least thought that I was worth talking to, if I didn't have that kind of help, right?
My first ever music teacher is the pianist for the Queen of Thailand.
Wow.
And she like literally got invited to Her Majesty's to play with her. And if it wasn't for her, I just wouldn't have gone into professional music. And I haven't seen her in a while. Like she taught me for like, she was like a third parent to me, but like, yeah, it was absolutely wild.
Right.
So, having someone.
So like, I think like part of that research question is just as much as it is like the institution and the research, it's also the people that you know that I guess help carry you through life, you know, in one way or another.
Thank you. This leads very well into my last question before we open it up for a little bit of question and answer from the audience and whatnot. What is the best experience that you've had in graduate school? And I say this because we're leading up to APITA Heritage Month, which is so for APITA Heritage Month, it happens in April for most colleges and universities. API month in May is the federal recognized holiday or history month. And our theme for this year's APITA is Celebrate APITA Voices. I want to celebrate you all. So, you know, you're making it through, which is incredible. You're doing what a lot of people don't do. Is, you know, being in graduate school, surviving, hopefully, you know, graduating and finishing, you know, I've been told, and I know it for myself personally, a good dissertation is a dumb dissertation.
Oh, yes.
That's all that matters. No one's really going to read it, so it doesn't matter.
Portfolio in my case, but yeah, I feel it.
Thesis too, whatever works for you. So I want to celebrate you. So tell me something that you're proud of, that you've made it this far. You've been invited to speak. So what are some good moments that you've had?
Is it good moments like relating to our graduate research or just while we were a grad student?
Both and.
Oh, okay, fair.
I would say like some of the stuff is just like this is with the caveat that I barely remember half of what I've done so far, right? Like it's like it goes like a blur. Just a lot of the community, right? Like that's been so huge. Like a lot of the like the people who hang out at the GLC cafe, just being able to spend that time with community, because we're grad students, we're all working all the time whenever we're not trying to survive, right? Taking those moments to be with people in our community and taking moments to be with each other, just like, you know, casually, I think they're everyday things, right? They're small things, but they matter. Like looking back, they mattered a lot more than I realized at the time, you know?
Some moments I could think of. Well, one was pretty recent. So I only speak English fluently. I was raised in kind of like a we want you to be a true American kid household for like a variety of reasons. So one half of my family speaks Mandarin and the other half speaks Farsi. And I can't understand either of them fully. I can understand little bits and pieces, but I can only respond in English. I've been trying to learn languages, but doing that when you're in your 20s or above is a little harder than when you're a kid.
Yeah.
At Nowruz, which is Iranian New Year, Persian New Year, I sang in Farsi for the first time. And that was the first time I ever sang publicly in my entire life. And it was in a language that I hardly speak. So that was a real good moment because people were just proud because like I could go into, I'll keep it short. The singer who wrote the song I Sang, she, like me, also lives in exile. And well, she lived in exile. And so like with, you know, the revolution that's happening right now, it was like a very current thing going on. I also, I don't know, I had over the summer, like I said, I was a national competition winner, and I was one of the 6 finalists in a national instrumental and vocalist like competition. I performed at Appalachian State University, and like my mom went with me. And it was the first time she had ever really kind of like seen me in all my glory. And like, you know, I have a kid and she's gonna get a master's and she's really good. And I'm like, cool, but I don't know math. And she's like, that's okay.
Actually, for me, it is different. Maybe many of you may not agree with me. So after working so many years, I feel doing this grad school is refreshing for me.
Yeah.
And I feel relaxed.
Working
And
sucks.
after so many years, I'm sleeping 8 hours a day. I never slept 8 hours in last night.
I feel like if I wasn't teaching, I'd be doing this.
And my phone not ringing at midnight.
Oh no, oh, it's funny.
No one calls me and asking something is broken.
Oh god, I got a
So
couple
I'm
years.
enjoying this. This is my best experience.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing a similar thing where I like work for a couple of years and then I have to go and get hopefully my doctorate and get a PhD in flute performance. I had to work for a couple of years. Now I'm scared. So
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on what we're talking about. So coming from industry into school, I think that one of the biggest interesting parts of it's been learning opportunities. You know,
Yep.
I was out of school for 8 years, I think, right before this PhD. So coming back to just a lot of learning, and that feels really good.
Yeah.
Specifically, I would say I supervised an undergraduate student last year for 2 semesters of research, and she won the best research in our department. And that felt even better than me winning it.
it's like
You know,
you're
that
a
was-
proud parent. You're
Yeah,
like, yes,
it's like-
like,
that was really, really good.
Yeah, especially because you didn't have to deal with I definitely agree with you though. Like working, just like the learning when you're in grad school and just like in academia, it's compared to learning in industry, right? Like
someone's
learning
in the
industry.
waiting room. They just now joined.
I got it. I got it.
Hello, sorry.
Okay, cool. There. So like learning in industry, right? Like it's very like I don't know if I'd call it structured, but you have modules. You're learning towards a very specific goal, right? Whereas like with grad school, it's like here's the world, man. Figure it out. Just
Yes.
the world is your oyster. Do something about it.
Throw
you
some
know?
sand around.
Yeah.
My experience with industry is that it plateaus after a while.
Yes.
So it's lots of learning at the beginning, but then it plateaus. But in academia, there's a lot more opportunities to learn, even as a professor, if you're doing your job right.
Right. Yeah.
Man, I just feel like it keeps pouring out, and I'm like,
I think can I add one more thing?
And then, yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
No, please, man, go ahead.
I'll
I
go
keep
for it, okay.
interrupting you, sorry.
I mean, like in my undergrad, you know, like as computer science major, I have to take all classes from like, all areas of computer science, like AI, like software engineering, systems, even areas that I'm not interested in. Some are really tough and hard. So I was wondering, is computer science really right for me? Is this what I really want to do in the future? Like after coming to grad school, I can narrow it down to more to what I want. I can only focus on that part. So I think like that was my favorite part of like being in the grad school. And like not to mention, you know, having interesting conversations with Chris.
oh, you're professor. It feels so wrong.
I think for me, there have been a lot despite the ups and downs, but as we were talking about community, my theater cohort, we used to go on these little Fridays where every Thursday we would go out and grab dinner and drinks together, no matter what the deadline is. Little Friday has to happen. So that was like a very like let out sort of moment for all of us. And one experience that I keep pulling from, which like formed who I am right now, is when I designed my first ever set. And I stood on that set. So it was like standing in my own drawing, because you make everything here and then you develop it. And the set was called The Foreigner. So there was a running joke that the foreigner designed the foreigner. So that shaped a lot. And then the most recent one, sorry, I'm super proud of it, but usually our master's program has this thesis kind of module where as interior designer, you're given like a shell, and then as your final project, you do the whole interior design for it. And that's about it. So like, I mean, that's not about it. It's not small, but that's how they do it. Like they just give you a hypothetical project to work on. But I wanted to take it more closer to my community and what I want to do. And for a long time, I have been trying to work with the slums in India. So this time I was finally able to convince my advisor for my final thesis to be where I'm studying the psychological impact of interiors in slums. And then I'm using interior design tools to intervene and provide them with better living lifestyle. So I'm really happy about that because I'm working on it on foot in India while I'm also studying it here. So it's like combining both of these.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Super happy.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your thoughts, your ideas. It's really valuable. I'm gonna pretend you're on because you're the only undergrad.
Yeah,
And I was just wondering if you had any questions to the graduate
I
students.
kind of came in late, so I
Yeah,
kind of
but-
came in wondering what was happening, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not really, I guess. Really nice to hear everybody's perspective on everything, and I think I definitely learned a lot. Definitely hearing from people that are older than me and who definitely have more experience with how the world works. Prepare me for the future. I mean, I know Min's only like a year older, but still that. Difference, so.
I have to wear a faculty badge and I have to hear 100 students call me Miss Diani every day. And if that doesn't make me feel ancient,
Anyone in Zoom have a question? You can feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to. Anyone? Guess not. Anyone who's just been listening?
No, I don't really have any questions, but I do want to take all of the experience. It was really nice.
oh, we got something in chat.
Okay.
I can't, my eyes are
No,
crap.
you're fine.
I don't know what it is. I just saw the.
Don't have
number.
any questions, but I appreciate your insights and your experiences.
Thank
Hey, thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being
Yes.
here.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have one burning question that you want to answer? All of you, any of you? Like one thing you want to share or communicate? One last thought.
Know that it doesn't matter what people think about you. The only thing that
Okay.
matters is who you are.
I was gonna
Because
just say be loud, but yeah,
That's
Oh,
the same
yeah.
thing. It's the same thing, just said different.
Be confident.
as Shrek says, better out than in. I'm so mature.
That's what it's-
I think one thing about grad school that everyone of us should remember is we are not here because they need us. We are here because we need them and we need to get the education out of us. So it's not like they're doing any sort of beneficial thing by keeping us here. You made your way here. So keep making your way, like don't stop.
I was gonna say that, immigrants from any country, second, first, second generation, we tend to be a lot more conservative in life decisions in terms of, risk averse. So I believe that communities like this can provide the kind of, emotional support for each other to, promote a little bit of risk-taking behavior among grad students. I can see a lot more risk-taking behavior among non-immigrant students. I wish one day we can match
You need a secure foundation to do so.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can provide that.
some.
Yeah,
at least.
Thank you. I am gonna stop recording now.
Okay. Bye, everybody.